He asked me to wait. And then everything broke down. My life was pretty simple. Work, home, repeat. I didn't mind it, really. Every morning, I'd grab a coffee from Beans and Brews on my way to the office. It was a habit. One rainy Thursday, I was in line checking my phone when someone bumped into me. "Sorry," a voice said. I looked up and saw a man about my age holding a dripping umbrella. He had kind eyes. "It's okay," I said. We got talking while waiting. His name was Alex. He was new in town, working as a teacher. I'm a nurse, so our schedules were opposite, but we hit it off. He made me laugh for the first time in weeks. I didn't think much of it then. Just a nice encounter. But the next day he was there again. We smiled at each other. Soon it became a thing. We'd meet at the coffee shop a few times a week. We talked about everything. Our families, TV shows. I started to look forward to those mornings. My friends noticed happier. I knew I was developing, but I was scared. What if he didn't feel the same? We were just friends. Then, one day, he didn't show up. I waited for 10 minutes, but he never came. I felt a knot in my stomach. I texted him. We had exchanged numbers a while back, but he didn't reply. Days passed. No was worried. Had I done something wrong? Finally, after a week, he called. His voice was shaky. He explained that his father had fallen ill, and he had to go back home to help. He apologized for not contacting me sooner. I told him it was fine, but my heart ached. We talked for an hour. He said he didn't know when he'd be back. I offered to help, but he said no. After that call, things changed. We texted daily, but it wasn't the same. I missed seeing him. I realized how much he meant to me. One evening, he sent a photo of him with his family. He looked tired. I wanted to be there for him. I booked a flight to his hometown without telling him. It was impulsive, but I had to see him. When I landed, I sent him a message, "I'm here." He called immediately, surprised and confused. I said, "I care about Alex." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Meet me at the park near my house." I took a taxi, my hands trembling. When I saw him, my breath caught. He looked so sad. We hugged, and it felt right. "Thank you for coming." We walked and talked for hours. He told me his father was getting better, but he might have to stay longer to help. I understood. But then he said something else. He took a deep breath. "Before I left, I was going to tell you something. I have feelings for you, but now, with all this, I don't know what to do." I held his hand. "We'll figure it out," I said. But inside, I was terrified. What if distance broke us before we even started? As I got back on the plane, I wondered if I had made a mistake. But when I got home, there was a message from him. "I've never met anyone like you. Wait for me," I cried. Of course I would wait. But waiting is hard. Weeks turned into months. We video called often, but it wasn't enough. I dated other people to distract myself, but it felt wrong. Then one day, he called to say he was coming back. I was overjoyed. But when he arrived, something was different. He was distant. I asked him what was wrong. He said, "I met someone back home. It just happened." I felt like the ground had disappeared. All that waiting for nothing. He saw the hurt and quickly said, "But it's over." I ended it. I chose you. I didn't know what to feel. Relief? Anger? I needed time to think. He gave me space. A few days later, he showed up at my door with flowers. "I'm sorry," he said. "I love you." I let him in. We talked till sunrise. We decided it's slow. But love it isn't always slow. It rushes in when you least expect it. We became a couple. It was beautiful and messy. We argued about small things, but we always made up. Then he got a job offer in another state. A great opportunity. He asked me to do my own career. I didn't know what to do. I told him I needed to think. The deadline for his decision is next week. As I write this, I'm sitting in our favorite coffee shop. He's waiting for my answer. I love him, but am I ready to leave everything behind? I don't know. I really don't know.
I never thought I would tell this story to anyone, but it still lives in my head every day. It started in a very ordinary way, on a Tuesday evening after work. I was tired, scrolling on my phone, not looking for anything serious. My life felt stable but empty, like I was moving from one day to the next without much feeling. Then I saw her message, one simple, asking about a book I had posted. I replied without thinking much, and we started talking. At first, it was just casual. We talked about work, about how strange the weather was, about food we liked. Nothing special. But I noticed I was checking my phone more often. I waited for her replies and felt a small rush when they came. I told myself it was nothing, just boredom, just a distraction. Still, I went to bed thinking about her words and the way she laughed in her voice messages. A few days later, we met for coffee. I almost canceled because I felt nervous, which surprised me. I do not usually get nervous. She arrived, apologized, slightly out of breath. She smiled and something inside me shifted. We talked for 2 hours like we already knew each other. It felt easy. When we said goodbye, I felt a strange heaviness, like something important had just started, and I did not know how to handle it. After that, she became part of my routine. Morning messages, short calls during breaks, long talks at night. I shared things I usually keep to myself. She listened carefully, remembered details, asked questions. I felt seen in a quiet way, but there were also pauses. Sometimes she disappeared for hours, then returned as if nothing happened. I did not ask why. I did not want to seem needy. One evening she told me about her past relationship. She said it ended badly, and she was afraid of repeating mistakes. I said I understood, even though I did not fully. I want to be patient, to be safe for her. At the same time, I felt myself getting closer than I planned. I noticed how my mood depended on her tone, on the speed of her replies. That scared me. The night before everything changed, she called me unexpectedly. Her voice sounded tired. She said she needed to see me soon, that there were things we had not said yet. I agreed without hesitation. After the call ended, I sat alone in my room, staring at the dark window, realizing I was already in deeper than I wanted to admit. I tried to distract myself the next day, but it did not work. At work, I reread old messages instead of focusing. I wondered what she wanted to tell me and why it felt so serious. Part of me hoped she would say she felt the same. Another part was preparing for disappointment. I had been there before and knew how quickly hope could turn into regret. When we met that evening, she looked different. Not in her clothes or hair, but in her eyes. We walked without a clear direction, talking about small things, avoiding the real topic. I could feel the tension between us. Every step felt slow. I wanted to reach for her hand, but I did not. I was afraid of crossing a line that maybe only existed in my head. We stopped near her place. The street was quiet. She looked at me for a long moment, took a deep breath. She said she cared about me more than she expected. Then she said she was confused and scared of hurting me. I listened, nodding, trying to stay calm. I told her I cared too, and that I was willing to take things slowly. She smiled sadly and said she needed time. We hugged, and it lasted longer than a friendly hug should. When I walked home, my chest felt tight. I could not tell if this was the beginning of something real or the start of a slow goodbye. That night, I waited for a message that did not come, and I knew the next conversation would decide everything. I lay awake until morning, replaying her words again and again. My phone stayed silent on the table. I told myself I could still walk away, but deep down I knew I would answer when she finally called. Even if it broke me, the morning after that night felt heavier than it should have. I woke up early even though I barely slept. My phone was still silent. I checked it too many times, pretending I was only checking the time. I went to work and did everything on autopilot. People talked to me, I answered, but my thoughts were somewhere else. I kept replaying the hug, the way she held on just a second longer, and the words she did not say. Around noon, she finally messaged me. She wrote that she was sorry for disappearing and that she needed some space. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. I wanted to say that I missed her already, that the silence hurt, but instead I said I understood. The moment I sent it, I felt like I had given up some ground I would not get back. The next few days were strange. We still talked, but not like before. Messages were shorter, calls were rare. I noticed how careful I became with my words, afraid to push too much. At the same time, I felt frustrated with myself for holding back. I did not know how to be casual anymore. Everything important. One evening she asked if we could meet again. I said yes immediately, then spent hours overthinking it. When we sat across from each other, there was an awkward distance between us. She talked about work, about being tired, about needing balance in her life. I listened, but inside I was waiting. Finally, I asked what was really going on. She looked down and said she liked me, but she was not sure she could give me what I deserved. Those words stayed with me. What did I deserve? I had not asked for promises or plans. I just wanted honesty and presence. I told her that. She nodded, but her eyes were uncertain. She said she was afraid of starting something and failing again. I said that fear was part of any relationship. She did not disagree. She did not agree either. After that meeting, things slowly faded. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just less and less. Fewer messages. Longer gaps. I tried to stay calm, but my anxiety grew. I hated how much power her attention had over me. I wondered if I should be the one to step back to protect myself. Every time I decided to do it, she would send a message that pulled me right back. One night I finally asked her directly where we stood. She took a long time to reply. When she did, she said she cared deeply but was not ready for a relationship. She said she hoped I could understand. I told her I did, but my hands were shaking. After that, there was a silence that felt final.
I never thought my life would change in a waiting room, especially not at Mike's Auto Repair. It was a Tuesday. My ancient Honda had given up again, and I was just hoping the bill wouldn't ruin my month. I was sitting there, scrolling through my phone, trying to ignore the smell of old coffee and gasoline, when the door chimed. He walked in, and my first thought was, he looks like he lost a fight with a bicycle. He had a fresh scrape on his forehead and was holding his arm carefully. He gave a half smile to the woman at the counter, his voice quiet as he explained his pickup truck had a flat just down the road. I went back to my phone, but I kept glancing up. There was something about the way he stood, tired but patient, that made me look. When he sat down 2 chairs away, I fumbled my phone. It clattered to the floor. "For me?" he asked, handing it back. Our fingers touched briefly. "York's rougher," I said, nodding at his scrape. He laughed, and it was a warm sound. He told me his name was Leo. He'd been helping his sister move and swerved to avoid a cat. The conversation just... We talked about terrible cars, our favorite terrible coffee from the gas station next door. For 20 minutes, I forgot about my own repair bill. I forgot I was in a grimy waiting room. I was just me, talking to him. Then the mechanic called my name. My car was ready. A weird panic set in. This was it. A nice chat with a stranger. I stood up, gathered my bag. "Well," I said. "Good luck with the tire." He looked at me and for a second he seemed to hesitate. "You too," he said. "With everything." I walked out, my heart sinking a little. A missed connection. A story I'd tell my friend about, the cute guy at the garage. I got into my car, started the engine. And then I just sat there. My hands were on the wheel, but I couldn't drive it. This felt stupid. This felt like a movie, and I wasn't the kind of person who did things this. But I turned off the car, my hands shaking. I walked back inside. He was still there, looking out the window. He turned, surprised. I blurted it out before I could chicken out. I was wondering, do you want to get a cup of that terrible gas station? Like now? His face changed, that tired smile turning into something real, something bright. I thought you'd never ask, he said. We got coffee and sat on a bench outside. The sun was setting. We talked for an hour, and it was the easiest hour of my life. He told me he painted houses for a living but was saving for art school. I told him about my dream of starting a small bakery. It felt like handing over little pieces of myself I usually kept tucked away. When we finally said goodbye, he didn't ask for my number. He just handed me a slightly bent business card from his wallet. On the back, he'd written his number. In case you want to complain about the coffee later, he said. I drove home floating. For 3 days, that card sat on my kitchen counter. I'd pick it up, put it down. I wanted to call, but the fear was real. What if that magic hour was just a fluke? Finally, on the 4th night, I took a deep breath and typed a text. The coffee was as bad as promised. Want to try a deep cup sometime? I held my breath. The 3 dots appeared immediately. They bounced for a long, terrifying minute. Then his reply came. I was hoping you'd never ask. We made plans for Saturday. Saturday came. I was ready 20 minutes early. He was supposed to pick me up at 7. At 7:15 I was pacing. By 7:30 feeling was gone, replaced by familiar disappointment, of course. This was real life. I'd been stood up. I was about to turn off my phone and eat a pint of ice cream when it rang. An unknown number. It was Leo's sister, her voice apologetic. There'd been an accident. Leo was in the hospital. The world just dropped out from under me. What? Is he okay? I was already grabbing my keys, my heart hammering against my ribs. His sister, Mara, said it wasn't life-threatening, but he'd been hit by a car while crossing the street after work. Broke concussion, lots of bruises. She was calling from his phone because he'd asked her to. Apparently insisted she let me know he wasn't just blowing me off. I told her which hospital, I'd be right there. I didn't even think. I just went. The drive was a blur. I kept thinking about that scrape on his forehead from the first day. I'd laughed it off. This was so much bigger. I found the floor, my legs feeling weak. What was I even doing here? He had family. I was practically a stranger. But I had to see him. I saw Mara first, looking like a younger version of Leo. Same kind eyes. She was standing outside his room. You must be Sam, she said. Just hugged me. He's been awake on and off. He's pretty loopy from the pain meds, but he'll want to see you. She put the door open gently. He looked small in the hospital bed, his right arm in a cast, his face pale. My throat tightened. His eyes were closed. I pulled a chair close, just watching the steady beep of the monitor. After a minute, his eyelids fluttered open. He blinked, confused, then his gaze focused on me. A slow, drowsy smile spread across his face. Hey, he whispered, his voice rough. You came. Of course I came, I said, my own voice shaking. You scared me to death. He tried to shift and winced. Sorry about our date, he mumbled. My timing is really bad. I let a laugh that was half a sob. Yeah, it's terrible. I reached out hesitantly, and my fingers put his good hand on the blanket. He turned his palm up and laced his fingers through mine. His hand was warm. He held his eyes closing again. Just gonna rest my eyes for a second, he whispered. Don't go. I didn't. I sat there for hours, holding his hand while he slept. Mara made awful coffee from the cafeteria. We talked in hushed tones. She told me about things. How he was the quiet, steady one in the family. How he'd been so nervous about our date. I watched the rise and fall of his chest. The way his fingers stayed loosely curled in mine even in sleep. This wasn't how anything was supposed to go. It was messy and scary and real. And in that quiet, fluorescent lit room, with the smell of antiseptic, something inside me shifted. This wasn't just a crush anymore. It was something else, something that had taken root in a waiting room, and was now holding on to hospital. I was in trouble, and I didn't want to be anywhere else.